What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You are listening to Campfire Catholicism. I am your host, Elton Jarvis. So glad to have you guys listening to the show again today. Always nice to have listeners. And today's episode is the second, I was going to say first, it is the second episode of Fairytale Friday, which again, we are focusing on the Beauty and the Beast. So the last episode we focused on the prologue of the story, and we even got to talk about a little bit of the Beast's character. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, I suggest you listen to that previous episode, and then I would say even some of the things that might be mentioned in this episode will come to light more. We're going to be looking at Belle's character today and deconstructing some of her character here before we get to the other major parts of the narrative. Fun fact, when I was growing up, she was my favorite Disney princess, and I had the most humongous crush on her. I don't know if there were other young boys in my grade. This was probably kindergarten grade 1, but I had a humongous crush on Belle. Anyways, I just thought I would share that because it reveals, I guess, the masculine genius in a young man's heart. Anyways, let's get on to deconstructing Belle's character here. Just after the prologue, so again, we talked a bit about the prologue in the first episode. After that, we get to see Belle, and we get to hear her sing, well, the song Belle. Now, as we watch this scene, there are a lot of things that we can observe. So we are going to deconstruct, I guess, the song to see what can be revealed about her character. And no, I'm not going to be singing on this episode. I'm just going to be reading the lyrics in which she sings. And so we're going to do it step by step. So let's deconstruct what she first sings. Little town, it's a quiet village. Every day, like the one before. Little town, full of little people, waking up to say, bonjour, bonjour. Anyways, so Belle is commenting on how the village is quiet. And I don't believe she means quiet as in there is no noise, because we later on to see that no, the village is quite noisy. I believe what she means by quiet is that the village is simple. And we only need to look at the village and what they're doing. It is a very simple lifestyle in which they live. Then we hear her say, again, every day like the one before. The simpleness of the village permeates through all of the village and its inhabitants every single day. It's a constant thing that happens. We're going to skip a little bit ahead and look about this more in context. There goes the baker with his tray, like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. Every morning just the same, since the morning that we came to this poor provincial town. So we get to see her, or we get to listen to her talking more about how it's the same every morning, echoing what she has said earlier. She's really emphasizing how it is always the same. And then we get the first little bit of foreshadowing into her character, or the unveiling of her character in this juicy part of the song, or the first juicy part. I don't know why I'm using the word juicy. Anyways, the first part. Good morning, Belle. Good morning, monsieur. And where are you off to today? The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and that's nice, Mary the Baggots. So I believe she is referring to Jack and the Beanstalk, although I could be wrong on this. So you can already see how Belle is overflowing with information about this book that she is reading, and we see the baker be totally uninterested in what she's speaking about. Or, well, rather, he could just be so focused on what he's doing in the present moment that he doesn't give her his ear for a long period of time. I'm just justifying how this baker is acting. I don't think any person should act that at all and should give them their undivided attention. But anyways, I read a book by a woman named Stacey Eldridge, called Captivating a few years back, and I need to reread that because there are just some things that haven't stuck in me that I need to re-stick. I guess I just need to rechew on that information. I did read the book by her husband, John Eldridge, first, which is called Wild at Heart. Captivating is a book about femininity, basically. At one point in Captivating in that book, the author does mention how women long to be taken on an adventure and to be part of a bigger story. And it seems that's what Belle has fallen into, or rather that is what her essence is speaking. She longs to be taking on an adventure, and there will be more to that as we continue to deconstruct the song and what she is communicating through that. And so we get to see, the townsfolk and the women just going about their everyday life as usual. They also comment, and they make a vast amount of comments on how Belle is strange and she is weird. And this part of the song, okay? The part where they talk about, like, how is your wife? I need 6 eggs. That's too expensive. And this is what Belle says. There must be more than this provincial life. So here we go. Belle has just confessed that she wants more than just a provincial life. She is longing to be taken on an adventure. And then we get into the next scene, which she is very, very enthusiastic in describing a book that she has borrowed from the library. This is a beautiful piece of dialogue. Ah, Belle. Good morning. I've come to return the book I borrowed. Finished already? Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new? Not since yesterday. That's all right. I'll borrow this one. That one? But you've read it twice. Well, it's my favorite. Far off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise. Now, isn't that a little bit of foreshadowing? Far off places, again, representing the far off place that the beast resides in. Daring sword fights, that can possibly represent struggle, and well, Belle and the beast have some verbal sword fights in that game, and the tongue is far sharper than any sword, so that preludes a conflict. Not only their conflict, but the conflict that is to come later on in the film. Magic spells, or rather, the magic spell that is placed on the prince, who is now the beast, and a prince in disguise. Well, that again is the foreshadowing of the beast. I wonder if every woman has that desire or idea of a prince in disguise, and if so, I wonder if it is due to the love that women have for adventure and for uncovering and unveiling mystery. It seems that, and I'm going to use this as an example, but Teresa loves to figure me out, in the sense she tends to have this intuitive sense about her, and every time she acts upon her intuitive sense, it kind of gives me shivers in a good way, because she, I guess, has figured me out in the sense. Okay, now the next bit of the song again is the town people repeating what they have stated earlier, that not only that Belle is strange, but also again talking more about their life and how simple it is. And since, again, they're repeating more about Belle's character and how weird and strange she is, it's adding more emphasis to, again, the previous statements that they've said about her. And then we get another scene of foreshadowing, and let's just read this. Oh, isn't this amazing? It's my favorite part, because you'll see. Here's where she meets Prince Charming, but she won't discover that it's him till chapter 3. I love how she starts by declaring that opening line, but frames it as a question. Isn't this amazing? And, well, it is. She doesn't just declare it to be amazing, but it is as if she is inviting not only the sheep in the scene, but as us, the listeners and viewers, to interpret the message that she is about to share in regards to the story that she is sharing. And that is what every great storyteller does or would like to do. They would want to invite the reader and listener to interpret the message, and for it to reveal key things about our individuality. Her favorite part is meeting Prince Charming, and in exclamatory fashion, she states that she won't discover him until chapter 3. Now, two things on this. Well, one, it is foreshadowing of her meeting with the beast, but not discovering the virtue that he will exhibit later on in the film. Hence why she says chapter 3, implying that in the book, the main female takes some time to discover who he is. That is, Belle takes some time to discover who the beast is. It also may simply, or it may imply, to add with what I just said, usually in relationships there is an aspect of discovery. And we see that Belle is discovering the virtues of the beast as the film goes on, and the virtues that he is exhibiting through his furry nature. Second thing, which is in a more theological perspective, when she won't discover him till chapter 3, well, man and woman, when they are in relationship, we discover and are reminded of them and oneself when God is the cornerstone. And I would argue we don't fully discover until he is the cornerstone. God, in reference to chapter 3, since God is a trinity, and while the culmination and peak of man and woman comes in the form of one flesh, in the sacrament of marriage, which marriage is a physical manifestation of the invisible trinity of God, who is love. This leads me to another part, or another point, which the book Captivating also talks about. Every woman longs for romance. And while in this beautiful story, Belle and the beast eventually wind up in a romantic tale, which is providential. So here in this song, we have gotten deeper into not only about who Belle is, but I guess what Belle can reveal in what is in every human woman. And I will start to conclude this short little episode by finishing this off by stating 3 things that we can observe from listening to the song and the dialogue. Belle is very beautiful. Again, I had the biggest crush on Belle growing up. She's not only beautiful on the outside, though, but she is very, in fact, beautiful on the inside. Again, when we talked yesterday about how, the inside of our souls can manifest themselves on the outside. There's a scripture passage that also talks about it. Jesus says that if you clean the inside of the cup, the outside of the cup will also be clean. And we see here that Belle she is a very clean woman, not only on the outside, but on the inside of her soul. She's acting in, and a lot of good Disney movies do this as well. They have some really good female leads and female characters. So Belle is beautiful, and every woman longs to be the beauty in the tale. And that's something to look at. Because we actually see later on, even in the song, we get introduced to Gaston's character, and Gaston, well, we'll talk more about him in a future episode, but he has this perception of what a woman should do in his life, and the fact that the woman should be, in a way, like subordinate to the man, but in even a ways enslaved. And he even gives this description of it when he goes to propose to her. I'm going to be out, and I'm going to come in, and you're going to massage my feet, where all the children are going to run around and play with the dogs, and we're going to have 6 or 7 young boys like me. There's a lot of toxic masculinity in Gaston's character. We'll get to discuss that later on in an episode. But he doesn't act as if he wants to treat Belle as the beauty in his adventure. She's just, even though a woman in ways is a helper to a man, she is just that, and she's not, cared for in some senses. Okay, number 2. Belle is longing for romance, just as romance is archetypal in a female. It's also archetypal in a male too, but or at least when I would sometimes look at young women, like I have some friends who have children that are young women, and they tend to dress up in dresses and they twirl around, and every now and then they'll ask like, do I look good, or am I pretty? And that kind of speaks towards their longing for romance also. And I think the one thing that I want to focus on the most is number 3, which Belle longs to be taken on an adventure. And there's that's not in a sense for them to know what exactly the adventure is. In fact, I could be wrong on this, but this is just me contemplating. I would think that women want to go on an adventure where they unveil things, and they get to have things revealed to them. I think that's why that makes this story, Beauty and the Beast, such a beautiful story. Is because, well, if we look at what the story is and we strip it down, well, you have the Beast, who is in ways longing to be loved, but doesn't know how to love and doesn't know how to be loved properly because he has this misconception of what love looks like to him. And then he gets to encounter this beautiful woman, this Belle, not only beautiful on the outside, but beautiful on the inside. And she slowly journeys with him to be able to love again and to know how to love. And, she does go off on an adventure. Like, she has to go and journey off into the far land. At first, she's there to rescue her father. And she also has some misadventures with in the scene where she runs away from the castle because she gets scared off and the Beast tells her to get out, and she goes on the horse and the wolves are chasing after her. There are adventures there, physical adventures, but then you have the emotional adventure, the adventure of the heart, in which she gets to rummage and go through the forestry areas of the Beast to find the piece of his soul, and that is the masculinity that is wild but is in control, and she gets to bring that out of him. And we see obviously later on in the movie, near the end, it gets to manifest itself back into a prince, and he is an adult and he is strong, but we'll talk more on that later. So I really hope that you enjoyed this little deconstruction video of Belle's character. And even though this applies a lot to femininity, this can also apply to every human being. And I guess the few questions that I want to pose in regards to deconstructing Belle's character before I finish off the episode is, number 1, do I live my life like it's an adventure, in unveiling the things around me in the eyes of God? See, the reality is Belle is living also in an image of God, in the sense that she is longing for adventure and longing to reveal and for things to be unveiled. And so she has an active participation in the natures of reality. And we should have that same mentality, always looking for things to be unveiled and revealed, and what they reveal about God, but what they reveal about us. And so have I been doing that? Or, again, going back to my episode of Tolkien, do I just live my life as a know-it-all, or as a pessimist, or as a nihilist? Do I just think that life is meaningless? So that's one thing that I would like to ask. And number 2, which is kind of interesting, talking about the townspeople in the song frequently state that Belle is weird, and that she is in a sense not like the rest of them, or that she doesn't subscribe to what they see. Are there times where I am targeted this way, or am I feeling this way? And perhaps a lot of you listeners may be persecuted because of the faith that we live. But what do I do with that? We're always called to make a defense for what we believe in, but do I instead attack those individuals with arguments, and do I try to just win the sake of an argument? Do I win an argument for argument's sake? Or do I love them by communicating the truth charitably and live my life with compassion and my actions with compassion? That's certainly another thing that because I think we can all relate to Belle, especially those of us that are Catholic and living a good moral faith when other people tend to, and it may sound like a personal attack, but really they're just commenting on why is it that we believe in what we believe in, but do we get defensive right away, or do we actually communicate the truth charitably and still live in compassion, and how we treat them as well? So those are a few questions that we can think of. There's probably some other questions that come out of that dialogue that we can certainly draw from. But I really hope I really hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode. Again, if you want to continue listening to this podcast, we're here on Spotify. Apple Music is also up and running, I am sure. And so I can't wait until we get on to the next episode of Fairytale Friday, which we're going to talk a little bit about Gaston's character. And so stay tuned for that. You have been listening to Campfire Catholicism. I'm your host, Elton Jarvis. Thank you guys for tuning in. Take care and have yourselves a great day.